Welcome to Inner Light, where purpose meets possibility. Today's guest, Kendall Berg, is a TEDx speaker, internationally published author, and career coach who turned her own corporate frustration into fuel for her transformation. Her story, 5 promotions in 6 years, proves that fulfillment isn't found by climbing faster, but by climbing true to yourself. Welcome to the show, Kendall. It's such an honor to have you.
Thank you, Anya. So excited to be here.
Mhm. So, Kendall, what was the moment you realized that your corporate grind wasn't enough and something deeper was calling you?
I think for me, I had hit a plateau in my career where I wasn't progressing, I wasn't moving up the way that I wanted to. And I got some really good advice from someone I respected that I needed to really improve my communication. I needed to work on how I built relationships. And that conversation became a turning point for my career, where instead of focusing on just grinding harder, working harder, doing more. Instead, I was able to focus on how do I work more effectively? How do I build relationships? And what I saw following that shift was that so many people around me were making the same mistake. And I had built tactical things that I was using in my career. I had built templates and practice forms that I used to make myself get better. And I realized that it could be very beneficial to a lot of people around me who were facing the same struggle. So instead of putting my head in the sand and continuing to struggle my way up the corporate ladder, though I did continue to grow in that space, I turned my focus more towards mentorship and helping other people learn the lessons that I could have learned much more effectively had I had guidance. And that's really where the fulfillment came from, was stepping in to help support other people who found themselves in a similar position to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And was that realization more terrifying or liberating at first?
At first, I would say terrifying. My husband has always been one of my biggest supporters. And he kept telling me, he's saying, you're so passionate about this. You're so great at this. Why wouldn't you turn that into a job? And to me, it seemed like such a far away concept to be helping people in their career. So I definitely stepped into it with some trepidation and some fear. And what I found as I did it more and more was that there was such a template to success. And as I wrote my book in 2024, we had to kind of templatize everything. As much as things are specific to an individual, we all live kind of the same life, different font. It's the same experience, it's the same frustrations, it's the same struggles. And so, how do we build the tools and capabilities we need to navigate that effectively? And so, as I stepped into it, it got progressively less scary. But there was definitely that time at the beginning where it felt like I was stepping out from something that I knew and I felt confident that I could do into something that um, other people were really relying on me, and it was going to be totally new space for me to operate in.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's such a relatable crossroad where comfort meets calling and we are forced to choose courage.
Mhm. Yeah, we're definitely placed into an environment where you either grow or you shrink away, and I never wanted to be the person who would shrink away from the opportunity. And I think if you have faith, if you have direction, if you have belief in yourself, you can make that shift, right? You can start to come out of that discomfort into comfort. I think a lot of people talk today about imposter syndrome, and we talk about how we don't know exactly how to do a job before we're in that job, or we don't know exactly how to be successful until we're in a role where we need to be successful. And a lot of that, I think, is actually learned by doing. Very rarely do I meet anyone who's like, "Yes, I felt totally confident stepping into this completely new space where I knew nothing," or I felt totally like I had everything together when I managed a team for the first time or when I stepped into a new role. And we all have to kind of push ourselves out of that comfort zone if we want to grow and if we want to learn. And that I think helps us evolve over time, right? Not just in the area of professional development, but in life, in dating, in marriage, in friendships, that constant investment in self. You don't build confidence by being prepared, you build confidence by doing the thing. Um, and that's definitely been a journey myself over the last 4 years as I've been building that career coach, is a lot of things I had no idea how to do until I had to do them. And then I knew how to do them because I had done them once, right? And so it's putting yourself in those positions to really challenge yourself that's gonna help you grow the most.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And your journey from stagnation to acceleration is so inspiring. And what inner shift helped you from managing to truly leading your own path?
I think that there's times where comfort becomes really appealing. And I'm someone who's had a lot of change in their life. I've moved more than 30 times. I've lived in multiple states. I went to a different school almost every year of my youth. And there's a point, especially for me, where comfort became really appealing. And that's kind of when I knew I had to do something different. I think that it would have been easy to stay into managing, into moving up the corporate ladder, into doing the vertical things that I knew and I felt comfortable in. And as soon as I felt myself kind of trending towards that comfort, I was like, I think it's time. It's time to do something new and scary. In fact, I picked up my whole family and I moved across the country in 2020. And from that, I learned that in a new space, you can make new connections and new friends and new opportunities. And so as I found myself seeking that comfort, I pushed myself into change. And then as I tried different things, I learned that I could fail quickly and learn even quicker. And what that meant for me is everything that I did didn't equate success or failure. What it did is it equated learning. And I think if you can have that mindset shift, that the things you're doing are an educational opportunity, they're a learning opportunity. What ends up happening is instead of launching a business and saying this is either going to be perfect and successful or it's going to fail, or instead of going into a new job and saying I'm either going to knock this out of the park or I'm going to fail. If you go into these different situations with the attitude that I'm going to try something new. If I fail, I'm going to do it really fast and then I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to try it again but different. And once you have that mindset shift, I think you get out of this space of continually trying to climb, continually moving up a vertical, and you start to shift into a, hey, I'm leading from the front. I'm leading through my experience. I'm leading through my challenges. And that's where you start to see momentum really pick up. And that's where I think you become capable of doing so many great things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, makes sense. And it's amazing how sometimes success isn't about adding more, but shedding what no longer fits.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm. And you emphasize aligning strengths and passions. How can someone uncover those when they have been disconnected from joy for too long?
Ooh, what a loaded question. And I think in so many ways, we do feel disconnected from joy, especially if we're in a job that's a bad fit for us, or we're in a relationship that's a bad fit for us, we're in a position that's a bad fit for us. As that persists, it starts to chip away at our happiness, at our joy, at our, feeling of success. So what I encourage people to do if you're feeling, joyless, you're feeling not connected to your passions, step one is really defining your worthiness in something outside of work. So especially high performers, we have a tendency to put a lot of our identity in what we do, right? So we think, oh, I am this job. And if I am good at my job, then I am a good person and I'm worthy of progression or money or love or whatever it is. And it's really critical for your long-term success that you're able to build that sense of worthiness outside of what you do. So there's a few ways to do this, and I won't get too tactical since I know we have limited time, but really starting to define, who you want to be and your future self. What does that person do? How do they make people feel around them? What kind of hobbies do they have? Where do they go on their weekends? Where do they live? What does their family life look like? What does their friendships look like? Really starting to define what your identity can and should be and not incorporating work into that at all. Right now, it might mean you have more flexibility or you make more money, but it isn't necessarily tied to a title. And getting really strong in that foundational identity is going to help you start to bring some of your spark and start to bring some of your joy back. And then once you feel like you've got clarity in that identity, stepping into what types of things at work do I really enjoy doing? And this is not specific to a job. So I always joke with people who read my book or clients who come into my program that this shouldn't be, I really love Excel or I love building advanced models. The type of work that we're really passionate about usually comes down to I like connecting with different people, or I get joy out of solving problems, or I feel accomplished when I'm able to deliver work at a high level of execution, right? Those are the types of things that really bring us joy and satisfaction at work. Very rarely is it the tactical job itself. More often, it's those kinds of intangibles around the job. And so if you're built in your identity, you understand your inherent worthiness, you're coming back to life and who you are, then we can build what are these passions? What are these things that really give us satisfaction at work? What does that really look like for us? And then you can start to find jobs that align with those things. And I always tell my clients that once you have your passions and your interests documented, they become your criteria to take a job. If you know that you only get satisfaction if you work with a lot of different teams and a lot of different people, don't take a job where you're not going to work with lots of different people and lots of different teams. If you know that you're going to get satisfaction from being able to mentor and help other women or other people in your minority group, don't take a job where you're not going to be able to do that, right? Mentorship for me was a huge satisfaction criteria, especially early on in my corporate career. And as I evolved and grew, it helped me a lot mentally to be able to invest in that, to invest in other people, to have other people invest in me. So once you know what you're really passionate about, then you can start to find roles that are going to be a good fit. And to your original point, if you've been disconnected from joy, if you've been unhappy in what you're doing for so long, identifying that inherent worthiness and then figuring out what your next steps need to be can be incredibly helpful in your growth.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's amazing. And are there practical exercises or reflections you use with your clients to spark that clarity?
Yeah, so I have a lot of these documented in my book, Secrets of the Career Game. But the first one is what I call an 11 list. So an 11 list is where you document 5 things that you want to be known for, 5 things that you don't want to be known for, and then you use those to kind of create a personal branding statement. And again, similar to the identity, your brand is not your title. We don't want to say Kendall Berg, founder of that career coach, is my entire brand identity. But we want to take those 5 things that we want to be known for and the 5 things that we don't and use that to clearly articulate what it is that we're uniquely good at, right? So if I think I want to be known as a problem solver who is strategic, who builds great relationships, who is understanding and authentic. Say that's my 5. Then my personal brand statement is I am a problem solver who brings their most authentic self to their relationships in order to build innovative and unique solutions for my company, right? For example, and I'm doing this off the cuff. So then we know, hey, this is how I want to show up at work. This is what it means to me as an individual. And this is how I talk about myself. This is what I'm uniquely good at. This is how I show up in the workplace. That's gonna be incredibly helpful as you build alignment in your job and in your career over time, even if you are a CEO of a company, right? Same exercise. How do you wanna be known? If you're starting your own, entrepreneurship venture, what is it you wanna be known for? What do you not wanna be known for? What does that mean in the way that you show up? And then for the 5 things we don't wanna be known for, those are incredibly helpful because these become our triggers in other people, right? When we think about somebody at work who just drives us crazy or somebody who's really frustrating. If we know what 5 things we don't want to be known for, we tend to expect other people to also not do those things, right? I'm not doing this, so you shouldn't either. And once we understand what is really triggering for us and really frustrating for us in the workplace, we can start to prepare for how we're going to handle those situations. And that makes us more effective. It makes us less emotionally connected to our job. It helps us handle difficult peers and difficult coworkers more effectively. So that's kind of the purpose of the 11 list. And then we combine that with what I call your 3 passion statements, which is what I was kind of alluding to earlier. What are those 3 things at work that really bring you satisfaction, but they're not inherent to your job. They're not tactical execution based. They are instead, hey, I'm really passionate about building relationships. I'm really passionate about building connection. I'm really passionate about getting to know new people, right? What is it that brings you that joy? And then that becomes your criteria for your job. And I find that these 2 exercises together, they really help you hone in on who you are, what you're good at, what you're known for, as well as what does that long-term career look like so that you find success and inherent worthiness, but also feel that external motivation from the roles that you take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Like turning self discovery into a skill, not just an abstract idea.
Yes, absolutely.
And your book, Secrets of the Career Game, dives into soft skills and corporate politics. How do authenticity and ambition coexist in such an environment?
It's a very good question, and I think this is probably the thing that I get asked the most because when we think of structured communication, when we think of the corporate game, right? The corporate career game, we start to think of that one employee who doesn't do anything, who isn't good to work with, who's not necessarily good at their job, but they keep getting promoted because an executive somewhere likes them, right? And it gets a bad reputation because of it, right? Because Steve doesn't do his job, but he goes to happy hour with his CEO every Friday, and so he keeps getting promoted. When it comes to how to bring authenticity to your ambition, what I always tell people is it's not just about saying the right thing. It's not just about what is going to make you successful. It's about saying the thing you want to say in a way where other people are, 1, going to understand it, and 2, be able to digest it. And what I see as a mistake a lot of the time in the corporate world or in the career field is we think we should be able to be very honest, right? I think that's a dumb idea, Susie. But Susie probably doesn't want to hear that her idea is dumb. So even if it is, even if it's not the right fit, even if it's not going to help the company, even if you're right, if that's all you say, Susie is not, 1, going to hear it, or 2, be able to digest it. And so there's a way to bring your authentic opinion to people and have them both hear and digest it. And that's where it becomes kind of an art more than a science. And, in that same example, Susie wants to go to the moon. We're like, Susie, that's a dumb idea. We're not NASA. This isn't going to make sense. Instead of saying that, if we say, hey, Susie, super ambitious plan that you have here, help me understand how this helps the company move forward. Help me understand exactly why you think this is important. Susie tells us, well, I think it's really important because everyone would be talking about us if we went to the moon. And you say, yes, that's absolutely true. I see your logic. I understand your perspective. Unfortunately, the amount of cost it would take for us to do that, as well as hiring new staff who are experts in that field and building that capability, would far outweigh the revenue we would generate from that. So, what if we think of some other ideas that would similarly get people talking about us, but maybe have a lower price point? Now we've said this in a way where Susie is still being told her idea is not going to work, but she's being told in a way where we understand her perspective. And so she is able to listen to us and she's able to digest that information in a way that's constructive. And so it doesn't mean that I don't think Susie's idea is dumb, but it means that I'm communicating it in a way where we both are able to move forward. And that's where I think the authenticity gets lost is, oh, but I'm saying it in such a nice way, but I don't actually mean it nicely. I would hope that you do mean it nicely. Like, I don't want to offend people. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them feel bad about what they do. And I would hope that they would feel the same about me, that they don't want to hurt my feelings. They don't want to make me feel bad. They don't want to make it harder for me to do my job. Right. And if you're able to communicate your authentic opinion, but in a way that's more collaborative and digestible, then you don't undermine your ambition, right? You're still able to grow. You're still able to progress. You're still building strong relationships. You still move up the corporate ladder, but you stay true to your perspective and your opinion. You just do it in a way that fits the confines of the career a little bit more effectively. So when you ask, how does authenticity and ambition come together? You can't be so ambitious that you communicate too directly and you destroy all your relationships. You won't be successful. But you also can't be so ambitious that you're lying in the workplace and you're just saying nice things in the hope that it's going to get you where you want to go, because people see through that and it won't be successful either. So what you need is that blend of authenticity. This is my perspective. This is my stance. This is who I am. But with that collaborative communication style that allows your ambition to continue. And that's kind of where I think most people will find that sweet spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a powerful reminder that integrity isn't a risk, it's our greatest strength.
Absolutely.
So, what an empowering conversation. Kendall's story reminds us that true success isn't found in titles, it's in alignment. So, take a breath, trust your instincts, and let your inner light lead the way to purpose and fulfillment.